What's up, nighttimers? Saturday night, we're back doing it again, and talking about a fun topic tonight. This whole week in doing preparation for this stream and doing getting everything together and doing research and going back and rewind. I mean, something kind of depressing. I mean, yeah, we're in the month of December and the season's changing, it's getting darker earlier, and depression's through the rise and stuff. And I'm just like, do I really want to do a stream talking about fucking death? you know but yeah, I don't know, it just kind of hit me weird, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna steer into it. It's an interesting topic. It's it, and you don't realize it when you're like me, and you're obsessed with Romero and Dawn of the Dead and all this other shit. But like my entire room, I'm just surrounded by either the word dead or death. It's interesting. I don't know. I'll kind of get into that a little bit tonight as we go through ranking Romero's death scenes. Part 1, we're going to be ranking all the death scenes from all of Romero's films, from Night of the Living Dead in 1968 all the way up until Dawn of the Dead in 1978. We got 30 scenes to go through. It was kind of hard coming up with what did I want to include, what did I feel I could leave out, how do I even want to judge like criteria on this. But I narrowed it down to 30 selections. So we're going to be ranking 30 death scenes from Romero's films from the first decade of his career tonight. And yeah, it should be fun. Like I've been working on this all week because it's a fun topic to kind of bounce around in your head of, okay, do I put this one here, this one there? Does this one mean more? Is this one better executed? There's a billion questions that go into this, and I'm still not sure about half of these. Some of these I'm kind of like, I kind of know where they're going to go, but the other half I'm just like, I don't know how the hell I would categorize these. How do you rank death scenes anyway? I mean, that's kind of a morbid thing to do, but when you're fucked up and weird like me and you guys, let's be honest, it's an exercise, and it makes you question. It's like, what is, just as a human race, like what is our obsession with death? It's very strange. I mean, the films we love, I mean, I assume most everybody that watches this or in the chat are horror fans, obviously Romero fans, or you would not be watching my ass right now on a Saturday night. So you guys are the real deal you guys are the real Romero fans. And I appreciate every one of you. But yeah, what is it like? Is it there's just something about human nature that makes us, watching? I mean, it's been going on for centuries. I mean, it's the Grand Guignol was like kind of like people would go to a theater just to watch simulated death. Not even there's like no real stories or anything. I mean, you can kind of say the same thing about some exploitation films, some slasher films, and whatnot. But it's always been a thing. It's just human nature. I don't think it's a societal thing. I don't think it's a cultural thing. I think every humans, maybe because we're the only species, or that's cognitive and aware of the fact that we will die in one day, or that we can actually think about it and categorize it. I don't want to get too goddamn dark and deep, but but like I said, preparing for these, I'm going to be doing more of these in the future because I really enjoy these shows where you're just ranking shit, because it's kind of just like a mind exercise a lot of the time for somebody like me. But doing one on death, I mean, I figure, what the hell? We're in December. It's the Christmas season, and what better way to get into the holiday spirit than to talk about death for the next couple of hours? So, but yeah, I don't know. It gets you thinking a lot about your mortality and shit. We're all getting older, and as Tom Petty once said, if you're not getting older, you're already dead. So aging's nothing to fear, but But anyway, it's going to be an interesting show, guys. I'm just going to let you know. It's going to be weird. I'm going to be kind of all over the place. But yeah, I mean, Thanksgiving. Hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving. It was last Thursday. Didn't hop on to a stream last weekend. Just Thanksgiving and everything going on. It's a little bit chaotic last week. But I hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving with friends and family and whatnot. Black Friday was interesting this year. It's kind of got me thinking because I was thinking about doing a stream on Black Friday of like a Dawn of the Dead watch along. Because for me, the Black Friday, like Dawn of the Dead, if Dawn of the Dead is any kind of holiday movie, if you want to categorize Black Friday as a pseudo holiday or whatever you want to call it, Dawn of the Dead would be like the perfect thing to watch on Black Friday. And it usually, like, that's usually kind of my go-to is like to watch Dawn of the Dead on Black Friday, just because everything Romero's talking about and saying with consumerism and just the ridiculous and absurdity of Black Friday, or what Black Friday used to be. It really got me thinking this year because I remember back in the day, and I don't know how long this has been going on. It's been going on as long as I can remember in my young adulthood. I guess that's probably about when it started, early to mid 2000s, when the whole Black Friday, like when we were younger, like we'd stay over, me and my cousin Justin, we would spend the night at my aunt's house or whatever, and every Black Friday, like on Thanksgiving, like on Black Friday, we would go, at like 3-4 in the morning, go just stay up all night, and then go to like Walmart or the mall or wherever the hell that we were wanting to get stuff, or wherever they were wanting to get stuff. We were younger. We just wanted to go and watch the chaos and watch the bloodbath. Because back in the day, you'd go early. There were lines of people outside. I mean, it literally was like something out of Dawn of the Dead, where everybody's just fucking banging on the windows and doors trying to get in. And so we would go just to watch people fucking fight over stupid shit. I mean, I watched these two women get into a fucking slugfest over a Cabbage Patch doll. And I'm not even talking about like in the 80s. Like these was when like the second wave of like the Cabbage Patch dolls were cool again for Christmas one year for whatever reason. That was completely just random. But yeah, these two bitches were fucking scrapping over a Cabbage Patch doll. I've seen people like literally like tug of war fighting over some prepaid phone from Walmart, like just random stupid shit. So it used to be like this fun adventure where we would go to just watch people. We would go to see like the worst of people, the worst part of ourselves, fighting over cheap junk. And as the years have gone on, it's kind of lessened a little bit. I feel like I don't feel like it's that intense anymore, and especially like since probably COVID. I think that was probably the death of Black Friday, honestly, the way that we knew it. Now everything's online. I mean, Black Friday, and everything goes for, a week or whatever. It's like Black Week or whatever. So it's just not the same. And like Walmart around here was closed for Thanksgiving and like didn't open. I mean, they didn't do anything big. I don't think like Best Buy did anything really that big. It just wasn't a thing anymore. Doesn't feel like everything's just online. It's just online shopping. I guess that's just the way that society's gone over the years, is just strictly to online. And it got me thinking, just, and the Romero fan that I am and the Dawn of the Dead fan that I am, just got me thinking. It's like, I feel like it's even started kind of already in some weird way. But it just got me thinking about Dawn of the Dead and, the film's longevity over into the future, future generations. And will it lose some of its relevancy? Because shopping malls are kind of almost already, a thing of the past. I mean, yeah, there are still malls out there, but they're not what they used to be. And you got to think that there's not gonna be a big resurgence of shopping malls. I don't think, there could be one day. I don't know why. But a lot of malls are dead, or a lot of malls are dying. And just not even just shopping malls, but like physically going out and buying something, physically going out and shopping is really becoming kind of a dying thing. Everybody just shops online. And my fiance, anything she wants or gets, it's like 99% of the time she just buys it off Amazon or buys it off online. You see it a lot with like physical media collectors. A lot of their Black Friday is spent on, the Vinegar Syndrome site or Severin or, wherever. I mean, there's just all kinds of deals out there. Kino always has a good sale going on around this time of year. And that's where they spend a lot of their money. Very rare, in physical media terms, there's really not a lot of places you can go physically to buy brand new physical media that would be, boutique label stuff, so there's that. But I just feel like I feel like over time, the relevance of Dawn of the Dead may wane. as generations go on and people are out shopping less and less. I feel like, and I think the country has changed too. Yes, we're still very, very heavy into consumerism and all that. Don't get me wrong, but the way we consume has changed so drastically that it almost, I feel like somebody that watches Dawn of the Dead in 20 years is going to be just kind of like, this is how you guys did things back in the day. There were these giant places that had all this junk you could get on Amazon. You'd have to go physically to the store, pick it off of a shelf, and pay for it with, that old paper cash money thing you guys used to have. You think into the future. I mean, it may, of course, there are always going to be themes with Dawn of the Dead that'll always, stand the test of time and all that. But I just got me thinking. It's just like, I feel like the beauty of Dawn of the Dead and just the way it was celebrated at the time, really for the first 20, 30 years or so, was really just because of the time that it was made, the time that we grew up. And we grew up with mall culture. I know I did. I'm a little younger, but I mean, still, even in the 90s, mall culture was a thing. I mean, to me, going to the mall was like the coolest thing you could do anywhere, just because they had everything. If you wanted to go buy, a movie, they had movie places you could buy shit. You could go to music stores and clothes and Hot Topic and whatever else, and of course, I mean, it was huge in the 80s as well. So it was relevant. It played well for those audiences. And, I don't know. I don't know how Dawn will play 20, 30 years from now when shopping malls are just an old thing of the past. It'd be like, I guess it'd be kind of like us watching, a film from the 30s or 40s and just couldn't identify with a lot of the stuff in that either. So, but yeah, I don't know. Just got me thinking. Black Friday going around. I ended up not doing the stream. Just it was just a busy weekend. A lot of shit going on, but yeah, I don't know. Just do a little musing here. Robert Dobbins in the house. So Robert got the Iron City on ice. Well, I'm very very jealous of you for that. I have none here, so have one for me, my man. Let's see. Let's hope Rickles wins the deaths. It's very possible. I mean, that'll be next episode. That'll be the 80s, Romero's 80s. There's so many. I mean, if I literally went through every single Romero death, we'd be here for, the next 6-7 hours probably. So I'm trying to chop these up into different parts so I can kind of get to all of them. No day. Just Night of Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and then we'll get through like Night Riders through Monkey Shines or whatever on the next one, and then I'm gonna whittle these down, and then like the cream of the crop, we're gonna have a big. We're gonna get to the bottom of what is the all-time greatest Romero death scene. So we appreciate you. I appreciate you guys. You guys are. Make it fun doing this. I'll tell you that. So all right, we'll start getting to the rankings here in just a second. I'm trying to think if there's anything coming up to talk about before we get into it. Because like I said, there's 30 here, so it's going to take a little bit. And I've already gone on some weird tangent about Dawn of the Dead, and it didn't take long. But that is interesting. I mean, that is one thing. Like Day of the Dead. I mean, I feel like just kind of piggybacking on to what I was just talking about. I feel like Day of the Dead has aged well over the years. I think it's become more relevant as we've gone on. I think it's more relevant now for just a couple of different reasons, really. I think today's, like, if you look at, I'd like to do a whole stream on Day of the Dead at some point, of course, but if you look at the time that Day of the Dead was made, 1985, and then you look at the other horror films that came out that same year, I mean, we're talking, Return of the Living Dead was 85, Reanimator was 85, Friday the 13th Part 5, and all those films are good. I love all of those. I mean, Friday 5 is my favorite Friday the 13th film, but completely different in tone to Day of the Dead. And I don't think audiences, I think 85, I don't think audiences were quite ready for Day of the Dead's tone, because it is very dark and kind of depressing and just a little out there for that time. But I feel like as a country, or just as a planet, hello, people of Earth. Um, we've just become a little more cynical and a little more angry as we've gone on. And I feel like that Day of the Dead kind of hits that point home, still to this day, of just the idea of people, arguing and not being able to get along or agree on solutions or how to handle things. And, I just think I think it plays really well today. And, so I don't know. I don't know. I just think, and you see that now. Like I said, I see a lot of people now that'll say that Day of the Dead is. I mean, Robert's one of them. Day of the Dead is their favorite Romero zombie film. And that, like, when I was younger, that was not a thing. Like, even I didn't like Day of the Dead when I first saw it. And I was probably like 13, 14 years old, and this was years after the fact. But first time I saw it, I was just like, what is this? It's like, this is not Dawn of the Dead Part 2, or that's what I was wanting. I think it's what everybody was wanting. But but over time, I don't know if it's, like I said, just society changing, and I post 9/11, I think, like that world that we lived in after 9/11 kind of lends itself to Day of the Dead a little bit. But yeah, I think it's aging well. Like I said, I've said before, I think it's kind of Romero's The Thing, like from what John Carpenter has with The Thing. I think Day of the Dead is that's what Romero's got with Day of the Dead there. See King Billy or Tony Bubba at the Hood. Yeah. See, I don't know where to put that. Like, it's a good such a good death. Like, but we'll see. We'll get into it here in a second. Like, this has been going on in my head for a little bit now. So I've been bouncing these back and forth. 1911 Guitar Dude, what's up, man? Tony Bubba's blood pressure cuff scene always brings a smile to my face. It is, because it's so outrageous. We're definitely going to be talking about that one. It's so outrageous. Just, it's an obvious gag. It's an obvious setup to a gag that Savini was like, wouldn't it be cool if, that blood pressure machine, we had the arm, and then there was like and that shit just came up on the fly. There's no way in hell Romero just wrote that in the script, because it really makes no sense in the whole grand scheme of things. Why would he stop to do that while, all hell's breaking loose around him? But that's just what I love about Dawn of the Dead, man. It's so, and I saw somebody comment something similar to this earlier on a video, talking about how Dawn of the Dead was just kind of it's just kind of off the cuff, and ideas being thrown left and right from everybody, every crew member, every actor. I mean, it was just swinging by the what's the phrase that they say? By the skin of their teeth, or whatever, just kind of making it happen. It's a very, well, I've always called it a very punk rock DIY movie, and I love that kind of stuff, and I think that's Dawn of the Dead is one of the reasons why I grew up loving that stuff. But yeah, we're going to be talking about that here, and we'll go ahead and get into it right now, actually. Because, like I said, we got 30 of these bad boys, and I want to get to I want to spend enough time on all of them before I just start to shut down physically. Let's see. Shut down physically. I'm not going to die on there. But what I mean is I get tired and worn down. It was nice having Grande join me on the last stream that we did, the last Saturday night stream that we did. It was nice having somebody to kind of share that with. So, talking for 2 hours straight, it's a skill, let me tell you. Okay, anyway, let me bring this up. And we're going to, there it is. Okay. Ranking Romero's death scenes. 1968 to 1978. I got 30 of them here. Night of the Living Dead, through Season of the Witch, through The Crazies, Martin, and Dawn of the Dead. And some of these it was hard to, especially in The Crazies, and The Crazies especially, it was kind of hard because a lot of people fucking die in that movie. But I tried to pick the most important ones, or the most, the best ones to pick from. So let me hop over here, and we'll go ahead and get started. All right. So criteria for this, I have no fucking clue. I'm just going to kind of play it offhand here, kind of talk myself into going one way or the other on these. All right. So first up, of course, in our categories here, let me before we just to kind of explain why I put these categories where they were. Of course, at the top, iconic. That is just an iconic scene in film history. Horror film history, independent film history, whatever. Just an iconic death scene that still gets talked about to this day. Then, of course, a satisfying end is, a very good death scene, a very satisfying death scene. Either it's satisfying because it's, eye candy, it's fun to watch, there's a lot of blood and gore and yada yada, or satisfying in the fact that character got, what they had coming to them. So just a very satisfying end there. Then oddly enjoyable, that would be kind of like, I don't know why, but this was kind of cool. I oddly enjoy it. It's not, there's no real connection to it, emotionally or anything like that. It's just kind of like, that was fun, or, that type of thing. It's just oddly enjoyable. And at the bottom, deserved better. That's either the character deserved a better death, or the scene deserved better, or the story deserved a better ending. So that's how I kind of got these laid out here. So we'll go ahead and rank all these suckers. Let me get Robert's comment here. Roger's death / resurrection was pretty powerful. Yeah, that's on here, and that was a tough one. A tough one to kind of categorize, just in the fact that when does he die in that scene? Would you count the bites as his death scene, or his literal final, monologue scene with Peter there? Would that be his death scene, his dying scene? It was kind of hard to discern, but Helen Cooper's is creepy with Z, and that's all. I love the sound, the use of sound effects there. All right, so let's get into it. Number one up on the list here from 1968's Night of the Living Dead is, of course, the very first death scene in any Romero film. Mainstream, Romero filmography is Russell Striner as Johnny. Of course, in the scene, Johnny fights, wrestles with Bill Heinzman, Cemetery Zombie. Cemetery Zombie gets the better of him, takes him down, head hits fucking tombstone, and that's it. And there's always been kind of a question for me in that scene. I think it's hinted at, but I've never been 100% sure if Bill Heinzman, if the Cemetery Zombie actually does bite into the neck of Johnny. Not that it matters. I think the tombstone, that just the sound effect of the tombstone, it's just, and I know the sound effects that they used for that film were just very elementary. I mean, they talked about it many times, just being down in the basement of 247 Pitt Boulevard, just with stabbing cabbages and shit, but it sounds so perfect. I don't know how I would rank it, but like I said, I feel like it could have been better. So yes, it is the first death scene in Romero's filmography in the Dead universe. Could it have been better? Yes, but I think it also did just enough to leave enough questions. We didn't really know that these ghouls were flesh eaters. We didn't really know too much about anything at that point. I think that's why it works so well, is that when you first see the film, if you go in not knowing, what's going to happen, it's terrifying, but it also leaves a lot of questions that will get answered throughout the film. So to start off here, how will I rank Johnny's death on a scale from iconic, satisfying end, oddly enjoyable, deserved better? I think I would put this one. I think I would go with oddly enjoyable. It's so fucked up. We're talking about fucking deaths, and I'm just like, this one was very oddly enjoyable. I like that. Very weird. This is a strange ranking, but we're gonna do it. Goddammit. So yeah, I think I would put that in oddly enjoyable, because, like I said, the sound effect is perfect. When his head hits that fucking headstone, it works really well. It works. The death scene works. I'll say that. Could it have been more? Could it have been Possibly, but I got I got an odd enjoyment out of it. Um, okay, so our second death scene here. I'm gonna go through a few of these, and then I'll hit the chat. If you guys have your opinions, thoughts, questions, yada yada, shoot them out as we go through here. And maybe if you disagree with me, let me know. Maybe we can we'll hash it out, and we'll maybe change some of these rankings, and we'll see what happens. But number two on the list here, Keith Wayne and Judith Ridley as Tom and Judy, and their fiery demise when my jacket's caught. If Judy had only stayed at the house. Anyway, so what do you guys think? This is an interesting one because it definitely is. I don't know if it's satisfying. I don't know. It's not really enjoyable. There's nothing really enjoyable about it. It's kind of shocking. It's jarring. Like I said, first time you see it, I mean, you're not really expecting it because films back in the day, I mean, man, 1968, I mean, it wasn't very common for the film to kill off all of their, protagonists. But Night of the Living Dead did it, and that's why Night of the Living Dead kind of stood out at the time. One of the reasons. I don't know how I would rank this one, really. This one's a tough one because the effect is awesome. The exploding truck, I mean, huge for a no budget film like Night of the Living Dead was. And then of course that leads to the barbecued, where the zombies are feasting on the barbecued remains of the characters. So it did lead to something cool. It kind of just kind of hits you out of nowhere. Like you kind of feel like something could go bad, but the fire and the truck's on fire, but they're trying to get out, and you feel like, okay, they're going to get out, the truck's going to explode, and then they're just going to have to, get back to the house or whatever. But the way that Romero edited that and the way he did that, where it's just kind of like a quick, just out of nowhere, just worked really, really well. So I don't know how I'd rank this one. Maybe I'll go to the chat on this one. What do you guys think? Let's see. Catch up on some of these comments here. Let's see. 1911 Guitar Duo. I think the iconic part of Roger. Yeah, is his rise after his death. I mean, yeah, absolutely. With the poster, the video poster art, absolutely, 100%. That was the first image I ever saw of Dawn of the Dead, was seeing that at a video store, and just his rising, Robert Dobbins says Johnny's death. I forgot. It was good. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely good. We'll just see. Like I said, maybe we'll have to rearrange these. How this works out as we go. Hey, you're the one who put oddly enjoyable. Yeah, you're right. I did. I'm trying to add some kind of levity to, a very dark subject. So I was trying to, add, a little bit of light here and there. What's up, Terrence? Good to see you, man. Hey, Alpha, great idea for a stream. Thumbs way up. Well, I appreciate you checking it out, man. Yeah, this one's tough. Like I said, I'm on number 2 right now. I'm already kind of stuck on how I want to rank this sucker. But yeah, I don't know. I think if Johnny's death is oddly enjoyable, I may have to go ahead and do it already. I think I may have to put the truck explosion scene in Deserved Better. I hate to do that because it is a effective scene. Because when you watch it with a crowd and people haven't seen it yet, it is kind of an eye-opening moment. It's just like, oh shit, I didn't expect that. Should I move it up to oddly enjoyable? Because like I said, it's not really enjoyable. Well, I guess in the pacing of the film and the way that the film's cut and just the reaction that it garners from the crowd, I guess, yeah, I think I'll put it in oddly enjoyable for now. Well, we'll see what happens as we go along here. All right. So number 3 on the list here, of course, is Carl Hardman as Harry Cooper. This one was difficult to kind of narrow down because, of course, he gets shot in the stomach. Ben kind of stumbles down the stairs tries to, which I think, is a very misunderstood scene. I don't know, him reaching for his daughter. I think that's just like everything that his character like encapsulated at the time, or encapsulated. I feel like that was like just his final, you know, a good final death there. I feel like, because I mean, his character, Harry Cooper's character, I mean, was ultimately only worried about himself and his daughter. Helen, he could probably take her leave, but I mean, he did. He was trying to get her down in the cellar when so he was just worried about his family, and I think that was, I think it was a good way to go out. And then, of course, after that, I mean, I guess this would still count for his death, but of course, he ends up getting eaten by his daughter, who is returned back, which is crazy. So I mean, I think it's a very good death scene. I think it's a very satisfying end. I mean, of course, most people are sided with Ben in this film in terms of the stay up and fight or go down the basement and hide, that whole thing. So when Ben kind of finally shoots him, I have heard this in theaters before with people that I assume had not seen this film before. Maybe they have and they're just kind of with it. But when Ben shoots Harry in the stomach, I've heard people go, yeah, kind of a small smattering of applause. So it is satisfying. I think it perfectly captures that character's feelings towards wanting to protect his daughter, even if he is an asshole. I will say, I mean, Cooper is an asshole, but and then just to be eaten by his daughter after the fact, I think it's a fantastic death scene. I think I will put this one pretty easily in a satisfying end. I think it's a very satisfying end to the Harry Cooper character. And then that brings us to Harry's wife, Helen, who probably got it worse. Of course, Helen comes down into the cellar looking for Harry and her her daughter Karen, and then there's Karen eating her husband. Wow, that's her daughter is eating her dad. Her daughter is eating the father, which is her husband. Very fucked up family situation there going on. But then, of course, the famous scene, the trowel scene, where Karen Cooper, stabs her mom to death with the fucking trowel, which I know, taking zombie rules very strictly, it's like, but I mean, they do explain that zombies do use tools like animals will, and so that Romero tries to explain a little bit over time, which is fine. But of course, this was the first, flesh-eating zombie film. So they were kind of just making up rules as they go. But nonetheless, I digress. Iconic scene. Just, I mean, Robert mentioned it a minute ago. The sound effects. That scene, the sound alone, just and you hear her scream, and then it's just like her scream isn't even matched up with, it's a very artsy fartsy death scene for Night. That's where I feel like Night of the Living Dead just kind of goes right into like just a completely different type of film. Like it you see the blood coming down the wall, blood. You hear. I just love it. I think it's one of the greatest, most iconic death scenes in horror film history. So this is pretty easy for me. This is absolutely 100% an iconic Romero death scene. I've seen, I mean, anytime you watch any documentary or any TV show, if they bring up Night of the Living Dead, there's a very good chance that's the clip, that's the scene that they show. So that's easily an iconic scene. And that brings us to Barbara's character, Barbara, who meets her demise by meeting her reanimated brother and pulled out of the door into the crowd of zombies, never to be seen. We don't really see what happens. I've actually seen a comic somewhere. I think it was like a comic strip or something where it shows Barbara like being pulled out into the crowd, but then she starts fighting them all off, and then she, grabs a weapon, fights them off, is able to escape, and she actually does survive the night somehow. But I don't think that's what happened in real life. Real life, like this is a fucking documentary or something. Um, that's how it played out in the film. I mean, um, this scene, I'm not sure. I feel like it kind of puts a bow. It brings Johnny back. It kind of answers that question. It's it is satisfying in that aspect. We don't see what happens to her. We all just kind of assume that she gets pulled out into the crowd and probably torn apart. Um, which kind of goes back to that what Tom Savini always talks about with the theater of the mind, where it's like what we're imagining happening to Barbara at that moment is probably worse than what they could have shot, especially when they were shooting Night of the Living Dead. The budget that they had, I mean the effects that they had, but so I mean I think it was done very well. I don't know if it's iconic. I'd probably satisfying. It does suck to see her pulled out, but I mean, she's with her brother again, so we'll put that in the satisfying category there. A very satisfying end for Barbara. She finally, finally goes back to her brother. So in a weird, twisted way, it all kind of works out in the end. And then, of course, the final death scene in Night of the Living Dead, the most impactful, um, inspirational death scene. I mean, think about how many films that you know that Ben's death has inspired over the years. Just Ben comes up from the cellar at the next morning, and then the posse's outside. He's walking to the window. Posse member says, "Oh, there's one in that house. I heard a noise." Boom! Good shot. He's dead. Let's go get him. That's another one for the fire. And that's how it ends. And it doesn't even end there. We literally have to sit there through the credits and we'll look at these still photographs of these men with hooks, just hooking Ben's lifeless body and dragging it out of the house with these hooks. Not even touching, like this man, just hooking him, throwing him into a wood pile with a bunch of other ghouls and setting it on fire. I mean, Jesus Christ, that's a hell of a way to go out. It's such an effective ending, such an effective death scene. The balls that they had to have to end the film that way, I can't say enough. I don't think it can't be overstated. It's so effective, so well done, but so simple, and it just leaves you leave the film with so many questions from that scene of just like because this is what I always took from it. This was always the question that I had. Did they do it because he was black, or did they do it because they thought that he was one of the ghouls? Is it a mixture of both? Did they say he may be, he may not be, but what the hell, he's expendable because he's black? That's how I always kind of interpreted that scene. It really drove a point home about even with all of this happening and the world's in upheaval and dead are coming back to life, like prejudices and stuff like that still existed and still played a role in how in the humans' response to this crisis. And of course, Romero would go on to explore that more in Dawn of the Dead and throughout all of his films. So I think this is an easy one. This is a scene that I can obviously I could go on and on about and talk about forever if I could. But this is an easy one. This is definitely an iconic death scene in just film. Period. I think it's one of the most important endings to any film ever, and it's still effective to this day. I swear. I've told this story before, but of watching Night of the Living Dead with the riff tracks or whatever. If it was like Halloween, like 10 years ago or something like that, at the local theater, and they were playing it. And of course, they play the movie, and it's like Mystery Science Theater 3000. And the crowd, a lot of the crowd probably hadn't seen Night of the Living Dead before. They probably heard of it, and then they were like, "Oh, it's going to be a comedy because there's going to be, they're going to be joking about it and ha ha ha, because it's a low budget, black and white horror movie from the '60s." And and it gets to the end. And when they shoot Ben, there's literally that like few seats down, there were these two women that I could tell had never seen the film before. But as the film was going on, even with the the comedy track over it, we're getting into the story. We're kind of getting into what was going on, and when that happened, this woman was just like, put her hand over her mouth and was just like, oh shit, like I did not expect that. So even to this day, 55 years later, still effective, still works. Let's see. Check the comments here. Okay, so Robert says the couple's death is iconic. Interesting. Yeah, I mean the explosion is iconic. Absolutely. I think that's one of the best, probably the most expensive effect or whatever that was in Dawn of the Dead. Let's see. You also say Barb deserved better. See, I thought about that too. I thought, as I was putting this together, I was like, it is satisfying on one end, but in terms of just like, there is a feeling that they were just like, oh, this would be a good way to get her out of the picture. Just take her off. Would it have been better to see, Johnny reach in and, bite a bit off her neck or something like that, Probably. Now you're making me rethink this. Anybody else got any opinions on these? What do you guys think? Because you could make, it's an easy argument to make that Barb deserved better. We'll leave it how it is now. I'm going to think on it as we go. We'll see what happens. All right. So the next film brings us to number 7. Is 1972 Season of the Witch. And the only death scene in Season of the Witch happens at the very end of the film when Bill Funhurst, who plays Jack, the husband of Jan White's character. So I guess to set up, if you haven't seen Season of the Witch, and by the way, if you guys have not seen any of these films and you plan on seeing them, stop the stream, get off. You can come back and watch it later, but watch the films first, because this is going to be full of fucking spoilers. I assume all of you guys have seen Night of the Living Dead already, so I don't think I was really spoiling anything there. But if you haven't seen Season of the Witch, or you haven't seen Martin, or you haven't seen The Crazies, for whatever reason you haven't seen any of those, and you plan on watching them, please, please watch those first. I don't want to spoil it for you. I want you to kind of get it first. So fair warning, this is going to be full of spoilers. But basically what happens to the film is Jan White's character, over time, her and her husband, to boil it down to as simple as I can, her and her husband are not getting along, just to kind of build to this death scene. Her and her husband haven't been getting along. They've been disagreeing. Their daughter's run away from home. He had to go away on a work trip. And Jan White's character has been dabbling in witchcraft and fucking around with younger guys. Just to boil it down. And so at the end of the film, when Jack comes home from his business trip, it's kind of raining. And it's kind of interesting because most of the film, Jack has kind of been a bit of a cold-hearted asshole to his wife. Through the whole thing, and he's just kind of been like, what the hell do you mean you didn't know what to do? You kick some ass, and he slaps her, and he has his moments where it's a very, well-written character. There are moments he's not 100%, he's not Doyle Hargraves, from Sling Blade, where it's not just all, you motherfucker. I love Sling Blade. But he does have his moments in the film where he's, loving and compassionate. He has his moments, but there are a lot of moments where he's at his absolute worst. So when we get to the end of the film, it's late, it's raining, and Jan White's character's been having these nightmares of this odd guy with this weird mask on chasing her through her house, and she's been having it like recurring throughout the film. So when Jack gets home from his business trip, it's late. He gets home a day earlier, so she was not expecting it. He goes up to his door, and like I was saying a minute ago, when he kind of has this moment of like, yeah, I've been working too hard. I haven't been the best husband. I think I may just take the day off tomorrow and spend some time with my wife, and because it's been hard on both of us, and yada yada. And there's just like, oh, okay, so maybe he's kind of coming around a little bit. I don't know. Anyway, he goes up to his door. He tries to get in. The door's chained, so he can't get in. And then boom, shotgun blast through the door, through Jack, and Jack dies out in the yard, gasping for air, pouring down rain. And it was the Jan White character supposedly thinking that someone was trying to break into her home, and her defending her home, and that's how she'll kind of get away with it. And then of course, just like with Night of the Living Dead, there's a lot of more questions than answers with it, because you don't know, okay, so did she do it on purpose to get out of the marriage, or was it really an accident? Because after that, she kind of goes through the whole ritual of officially becoming a witch. And no, she didn't ride around on a broomstick. She didn't wear a funny hat. Well, she didn't ride around on a broomstick. Anytime I can quote Christopher Guest, I'm going to, so I apologize. So yeah, it leaves a lot of questions, and the death scene itself is effective in a way because you don't see it coming, you don't expect it. There's like a voiceover that Romero himself and a couple others recorded of, I guess, like the police officers, surveying the scene and talking about what the hell just happened. And of course you hear George's voice, and he's got this thing. He's like, oh, those damn women, they'll get everything in the end, and it's just like these guys just kind of having this casual conversation about this, dead body and what just happened and how she's going to get away with it. And I've always, and it kind of cuts back and forth between that and the ritual where, Jan White is officially being, christened into the witchcraft fan club or whatever the fuck it is. So yeah, I don't know. It's definitely not an iconic death scene. Is it satisfying? A little bit, if in terms of just the story of the film. Did that character deserve better? Not really. I mean, it's kind of an interesting way to go out, kind of a very cool way to end the film, really. So I think this one, to me, it would have to go in the oddly enjoyable category, because it is well done. It's well done enough to where there is something oddly enjoyable about it, even if it's just as simple as the voiceover work from Romero, and I don't know who else was probably Stravinsky or somebody was helping him out with that. But just some of the dialogue, it's just like, oh yeah, they said the woman did it. Thought somebody was breaking into the house, and they do a really good job of laying it all out of how she's going to get away with it. And I don't know. I enjoy it, so I'm gonna have to put it in the oddly enjoyable pile over here. So let's we're gonna move on to The Crazies in 1973. Like I said, this one was difficult. Just having to narrow down, like, okay, what am I going to count as a death, and what am I not going to count as a death? Because like so many people die in this film that it's crazy. Check chat here. Jimmy Gwaltney, Jimmy G, what's up, my man? George originally wanted Barbara to be the final survivor. I don't remember. That sounds familiar. I'm not saying that you're wrong or anything, but I'd have to go back and reread that actual script. But well, I know that's what happened when George rewrote the script for the remake. Kind of changed Barbara's character to kind of be the final survivor. So that's interesting. I could definitely see that. I could understand that. And that makes me wonder why they just decided to kind of kill her off the way that they did. Now, I mean, bringing that into the discussion, Robert Tobbins, biscuits and mustard. Mm-hmm. I should do the rest of the stream as Carl from Sling Blade. I fucking love Sling Blade. It's one of my all-time favorite films. One of the things, being a guy, get back to you in a minute, Jimmy G, on your point, because I got to get back to this ranking, but just taking a second to talk about Sling Blade for a second. One of the things I love about Sling Blade being somewhere from the South, and one of the things that is one of my biggest pet peeves about any film is bad fucking Southern accents, and they're everywhere. I mean, even great actors are horrible Southern accents, but everything in Sling Blade, the locations, the accents, the mannerisms, everything about it is 100% true to life when it comes to the South and living in the South. I mean, I, I yeah. If you lived in the South, you understand. And that was based in what, Arkansas? I think I've been to Arkansas once, but it's just like a common thing. But anyway, we'll get off Sling Blade. But Jimmy G's comment, George originally wanted Barb to be the final survivor. I'm going to take that in consideration. And I think I'm going to move Barbara's death. I'm going to listen to you guys. I'm going to put it in deserve better. Barbara deserved better. She finally stood up. I can sit with that for now. I can sit with that for right now. Thanks, Jimmy. Talking me through it. All right, let's move on to the crazies here. And of course, the first death scene here, this is number 8 on the list, is Peg Tilbrook as the old lady crazy. And I think this is, you guys may think that I'm fucking insane for this, but I think this is an iconic Romero death scene. I really, really do. I love this scene. It's so it was something completely different than the rest of the film. It was absolutely 100% a horror scene where an old lady is stabbing this fucking soldier to death with this knitting needle. Easy for me to say. But the thing that sells it, and of course, it's got the little build up. He's going up the stairs and the shadows as he's going up, and he sees this old lady just sitting there in her rocking chair knitting this, whatever she's knitting. Probably nothing. I mean, she's crazy. She's just probably knitting a big fucking circle, or a big ball, which, and we do end up seeing the ball rolling across the floor as the guy crawls out of the room. But I just love this scene. The look on the fucking old lady's face as she's stabbed, just this weird smile. They should make a Halloween fucking mask out of this lady's face. To me, this is an iconic death scene in the Crazies. Maybe I'm crazy, but fuck, I love that scene. I think it goes up there in terms of Romero. I wouldn't say it's better than the Helen Cooper death or the Ben death. I don't think it's in that same level, but I would say it's like, back end of the iconic spectrum. So to me, this is going in the iconic section because I just, and I struggled with whether or not to even include this one, just for the simple fact that it's not really main characters. There's really not a story to this. Like it's not, it's just kind of a thrown in scene just to have a weird ass death scene in a film. But I just think it's so effective. It's so memorable. Anybody that ever, if you remember nothing else about the Crazies, you remember that scene. And again, just like with, the Helen Cooper death, anytime you watch a documentary or anything where they talk about the Crazies, which I don't know how many of those are out there, but that's typically one of the scenes that they use almost every single time. So to me, maybe I'm nuts, but that's an iconic Romero death scene. To me. If you guys disagree, let me know. Sorry, I'm going to grab me a Diet Dr. Pepper. Scotch is gone. All right. All right, number 9. This is another one that I included on the list simply because it's an effective death scene. The character's not really a main character or really big player in this film, but I've always been a fan of the scene. I've found and visited the church where this was filmed. It's Jack Zaharia as the priest in the Crazies. Of course, the military's coming in, pulling everybody out of this church. He starts freaking out. He runs out to the parking lot with a can of gasoline, pours the gasoline over himself and sets himself on fire and sits there and burns in front of everybody. Now, of course, this film was made in that time period, around that time, Vietnam, and of course there was the famous, I mean, it's the Rage Against the Machine album cover of the monk setting himself on fire in the streets. I mean, that was kind of the time period that this was made. So this is an obvious homage, an obvious, kind of mention of that moment in real life. This is a thing that actually happened. And the beauty of the Crazies, you could say, well, this was necessary, was this kind of pointless. Like, why did they have to do this? Like, in terms of just like the story, I mean, it's a cool scene. But the beautiful thing about the Crazies, and it goes for, the old lady crazy stabbing the soldier to death that we just talked about, is the whole thing with the Crazies is that these people are fucking crazy, so they're going to do crazy fucking shit. So it doesn't really have to make sense because they're fucking everybody's crazy. Even if you don't have the bug, you're still acting fucking crazy. So the beautiful thing about this film is they didn't really have to have a reason to do any of this shit. They could just chop it. Oh, well, he's fucking crazy. And that's the thing. Was the priest crazy? Did he do it because he was out of his fucking mind? Or did he do it as, an act of protest? So, I mean, that's always a question. I just assumed he just was crazy. But if you notice, before he does it, he kind of prays and he kind of asks for forgiveness and then runs out and does it. So, really weird way of offing yourself. But hey, that's the way he wanted to go. So where would I rank that? I don't think it would be. I don't think I could say it was iconic. It's close because I think that's another scene in the Crazies that people have seen it. That's the one they kind of remember. Would I put it in a satisfying end? It's not satisfying, I wouldn't say. I think the perfect spot for this one's probably oddly enjoyable because it is such a fucked up random scene of a priest setting himself on fire. So, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. That one's got to go on oddly enjoyable as well. And next up, Richard Liberty as Artie. Of course, that one, they just find him. He's hung himself. They cut him down. He kind of tumbles down the stairs. And, I mean, it's a well-edited shot or sequence of shots there when they cut him down, hits every step going down and kind of lands at the bottom. And Richard Liberty, I got to say, does a fantastic job of playing a person who has hung themselves, a dead person who has hung themselves. Of course, they had like a little bit of the blue makeup to kind of make them look, blue. But the character is pretty. I mean, of course, he's got the bug. He's crazy. He just finished sexually assaulting Lynn Lowry, who's his daughter in the film. So at kind of you're saying to yourself, yeah, this guy kind of deserves it. But at the same time, you're also kind of saying he probably deserves something worse. He, maybe didn't even deserve it. I mean, he's fucking nuts. He can't, and maybe he did the right thing. Maybe he redeemed himself by killing himself. It's a weird scene. I don't know how. It's not enjoyable. It's not really. I wouldn't say satisfying. Definitely not iconic. I guess I would put this one and probably deserve better. I feel like there would have been a better way to do it. Although I would say there's a shot in the Crazies where it's shot shooting from the top of the stairs down to where you see him laying there, and he's almost kind of in a very similar position as he was in when he when he dies in Day of the Dead. So we'll definitely be seeing Richard Liberty's name again on this list. on the next episode. But I think for this one, I think I'd have to put this one in deserved better. I feel like there was more. I don't know. I never hit home for me. I guess the way that some of these others have. Um, Terrence, yeah, I did not know that. Jimmy G coming out with the facts tonight. So I'm trying to remember. I feel like I don't even know if I've read the original Night of the Living Dead script. And of course, that script was always kind of being revised and rewritten as that film was being made. So as they were shooting, they were constantly rewriting and changing things and whatnot. So you'd probably have to go back. I guess the original version of that screenplay would be the Night of the Anubis or Night of Anubis screenplay. Now you got me curious. Now you got me wanting to track this down and look it up. But hey, like I said, you guys are the real fucking Romero fans in here tonight. Okay, so that moves us to what number is this? Number 11 on the list is Lynn Lowry as Kathy. She is out in the field. The soldiers are coming up, surrounding her, and she's of course got the bug. And she's going up to the soldiers, and it's like, "Hey, how do you want to play?" And she's just kind of, and the soldiers are freaking out because they kind of know that she's kind of lost her mind, And then there's that weird scene where they shoot her, and she kind of that close up where she turns around, and then she just kind of goes oh, and then it collapses, and then as she falls, the beautiful thing. I mean, there's no way they could have planned this to work out the way it did, but as she falls, the sheep in the field go running, and it's just really beautiful shot. How would I rank it? It's always been kind of a personal favorite of mine. I always kind of thought it was a little quirky little ending there. Is it iconic? No, I wouldn't say it's iconic. I definitely wouldn't say it was satisfying. I don't think that it was a very satisfying end. Which how do you want to see Lynn Lowry die? I mean, is that something you really want to see? I don't know. Has she ever died in a film? I don't know. I can't remember. Not from that early era, at least. But it is odd. Like, I think this one would have to go in oddly enjoyable as well, just because it is very odd. But I do enjoy it, and I think that perfectly summarizes the way I felt. Deserved better. I think oddly enjoyable is kind of a good spot for that one. Number 12 on the list, Harold Wayne Jones as Clank, and this is one I remember talking about when we were actually doing the watch along of the Crazies a few weeks ago, and I think it bears repeating. The headshot on this, the squib in the head, the blood spurting out. Really, really well done for this was not a Savini film. The squibs in general in this film are very well done. It's a very bloody film, just in terms of the number of gunshots and squibs and stuff that are used in it. But I thought I really, to me, this headshot where Clank gets shot in the head, and I don't know why any of you would have seen this, but if you've ever seen somebody actually get shot in the head, it does just kind of spurt blood like that. Don't ask why. Twitter is weird, or X, or whatever you want to call it. If you're on that and you're just scrolling through, sometimes you just see fucking shit you just don't want to see. It's very strange, but yeah, I think it's a very, very well done effect. Is it a satisfying end to the character? Yeah, kinda. I kind of feel like it is. The character of Clank kind of fights to the very end. I mean, he's lost his mind, obviously. Of course, the question to that is, has he lost his mind because he actually has the bug, or has he just lost his mind because of, lingering PTSD or anything like, or just like the inner anger and violence that's in all of us, that's the beauty of the Crazies. But so yeah, in a way it was a kind of a satisfying end where he's just kind of sitting there and it's quiet and you feel like, okay, he shot his way out of there. He's gonna survive, or he's just gonna sit there and just kind of be. You don't really know what's gonna happen. And there's just like this quiet moment, and then all of a sudden, bang! You just gunshot to the head, and you see the blood spurt, and you see the soldier kind of pop up in the background. It's a very well done scene, very well done shot. To me, this is gonna go in the satisfying end pile. Um, I think it works, and I think it's very sad when it happens because you do kind of like the character, especially at the beginning of the film. He's kind of the sidekick character or whatever to Will McMillan's character. But so yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? Satisfying end? Was it satisfying or just oddly enjoyable? Because I mean, a lot of these you could just throw into oddly enjoyable, but I do feel like that was kind of a satisfying end for me. Um, but we'll move on. So up next, number 13 on the list, Richard France as Dr. Watts, and of course, this death scene is another one that I think is really well edited and really well executed, really well done. Of course, Dr. Watt kind of thinks he's found something, or at least thinks he has found something. And so he's got the blood sample, and he's running out through the halls of this high school. And he's like, I got to talk to, the higher ups. I think I have something here. I think I have a cure. And of course, the military who are running security on this school don't believe him. They just think he's nuts. They think he's lost his mind. They will not let him out. And then all of a sudden, there's a jailbreak, and all these people are running out, knock him down the stairs, ass over tea kettle, head hits the floor and the wall. The samples, the glass beakers or whatever that the samples were in, go busted. Now we'll never know. And of course, he's down at the bottom of the staircase, dead, stone cold dead, bleeding out his head. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it there, but I love this scene, and it's a scene that it's one that you can really talk about and get into with people that are fans of the Crazies and fans of Romero, because like I mentioned, there is that question that I never even thought of until Larry over at WGON TV, until he brought it up. That was just like, okay, did he actually discover something? Was there actually something there, or was he just going crazy too? Had he been infected too, because he had been working so up close with these without a mask or anything? And of course, as they point out, the ultraviolet's not infallible. So did he get the bug and just think he had something and was just kind of going crazy, or did he actually have the cure? And then of course, chaos ensues and all hell all goes to hell. But just the execution of that scene too, for a film is with a budget of like the Crazies, really well done stunt. And the editing is very well done as well. When you see him get knocked down the stairs, you see this shot of him taking a backwards tumble down the stairs, and then the shot of him hitting the floor and the wall, beakers breaking and everything around him. Then it cuts to the close up where you see the blood coming out of the head. Love this scene. I think this is another satisfying end for me. I think this is, I don't think it's iconic, because I don't think it's one that, in the general scheme of things, I don't think like horror fans really talk about it too much, but I think it's a really well done scene, and a very like an oddly, this is one that I'd kind of put in the middle of oddly enjoyable and satisfying in, is because it's oddly satisfying in a way. So maybe I should add another category here. Oddly satisfying. No, I'm just going to stick with what I got. I'm just going to put it satisfying in, because even if it is oddly satisfying, it is satisfying nonetheless. And then, of course, the final death from the Crazies at number 14 on our list, Lane Carroll as Judy. And, of course, she ends up getting the bug, kind of losing her shit. and then eventually ends up getting shot and killed by some locals who think that um, because Will McMillan's character's got the jumpsuit on and whatnot, and the white suit and all that, they think he's one of the military guys, and then you don't know if those guys that shot her are crazy or if they're just fighting back. There's so much going on in the movie, but yeah, that's she ends up getting shot. She ends up lying there. There's the final kind of very sad, heartbreaking scene between her and David. She's dying along with David's unborn child. David, that's the point where David kind of cracks and gives up on everything. Everything's been taken from him. His best friend, his girlfriend or baby mama or whatever you want to call it, and his unborn child. So at this point, this is where he kind of snaps and just kind of says, "Fuck it." So I don't know. Not definitely not. Probably. Well, let me see what we got on here. Definitely, probably one of my least favorite death scenes in the Crazies, and probably one of my least favorite death scenes. It is effective in a way, just because of the moment shared there between the two characters. But it felt a little weak, So I think this one, has got to go in the deserved better category. Could have done something a little extra there. Just kind of came out of nowhere. It was just kind of it is a very sad down ending. The original ending to the Crazies, I think, would be iconic. The actual original ending to the Crazies, talked about original endings for Night of the Living Dead, but the original ending to the Crazies has, through the whole film and the original script, Judy and David are apart. They're trying to get to each other. They're trying to find each other, get to each other, with everything going on. And so at the end of the film, they do finally reunite. And as they embrace, big white light, the government has dropped the nuclear bomb on the town and blown everything to shit. So I think if that were the actual ending that we got, I think that would probably be an iconic death. But the one that we got just felt a little weak, in my opinion. But nevertheless. All right, we'll go ahead, take a drink here. Move on to 1977's Martin. And this one should be interesting. Some different kinds of death scenes here. And first up, number 15 on the list, Fran Middleton as the train victim. And this one's interesting because I do think it's a very effective death scene, and just that the effect of the razor going down the arm and the blood coming out. And especially because he tries to cut the first time and it doesn't work. And I think that adds to it even a little more. You see a little bit of blood at the top, but not nearly like just the big slice down the arm. So it is a very effective death scene. It's a very, and this is the first of Romero's films where he actually has Tom Savini to help, create these death scenes. So it's starting to pick up. It's starting to, the movie's going forward. It's going to get harder to kind of discern where all these go. But this one's good. This is how the film starts. I mean, you see this within the first 5 minutes of the film. I think it's a very satisfying end. Is it iconic? This is one you can have the conversation. Is this an iconic death scene in a Romero film? And I think there is definitely an argument to be made that this is. Definitely feel like there's an argument to be made that this is. Any opinions in the chat are welcome. I don't know. I think I'm going to put this one in the iconic category, because again, this is another one that anytime that a documentary or something shows a clip from Martin, this is usually one of the scenes that it shows because it is very well done. It is effective. It starts the film off in a very jarring way, and I just love it. So I think it's not satisfying. It's not a satisfying end. Yeah, I'm gonna put this one. That one's got to go in the iconic category for me. Um, just because it's simple, but it was just very very well done. Um, okay, number 16 is Al Levitsky as Lewis, and of course this scene Lewis is uh, the guy that the woman's having an affair with, Richard Rubenstein's wife, having an affair with this guy named Lewis. Um, Martin breaks into the house, doesn't expect Lewis to be there. He is. So instead of killing the woman that he initially intended to kill, he ends up killing the man instead so he can get his blood, his fix of blood or whatever, and also he can still have his way with the woman. Um, so in this scene, he drags the body of Lewis just out into the woods, basically, and takes a stick from. This is always interesting. It was like a very strange, like, who came up with this idea of just breaking a stick off from a tree branch and digging it into the throat of Lewis, which I guess at the time he didn't. I guess he didn't have any, like, his razor blades or anything with him, so he had to just kind of use what he had. So he digs, the stick into the Lewis's throat, and you see the blood come out, and there's a good little bit of blood there. I never thought the effect worked very well. I always thought you could always kind of tell. And of course, like I said, this is Tom's first time working with George. This is one of Tom's first effects jobs, period. And of course, he was working with very little to no budget. So this effect, the way that Tom does this effect, of course, is that he has the fake ground, and you lay the guy underneath, and you build the appliance up to the head, and you build the neck and everything, and over time it got better. It's pretty much the same concept as how he executed the effect for Kevin Bacon's character in Friday the 13th. Where the stake or knife or whatever the hell it was, what is that thing, like a harpoon or fucking something, comes up through Kevin Bacon's throat. Same deal, just different way going in. But this one I never thought looked great. I just didn't think it worked too well. Yeah, I don't know. I think this one, it's got to go and deserve better. I think this scene deserved something a little extra, something better than what we got. Or at least, if you're going to do that scene, I wish the effect had worked better. I guess that's what we'll say. This deserved a better executed effect. We'll just say that. Number 17 on the list for Martin is Regis Servinsky and Tony Pantanella as the hobos. That's what I call it. So Martin breaks in. He's getting a little antsy. Or, how does he put it in the film? Little jittery or whatever. So he finds these two hobos in this shed full of junk, and kills them, and then drinks their blood. It's just, is it an important scene? Maybe not. It is well done. I mean, just the shots to the head with the lead pipe, really well. Of course, he grabs the broken bottle and cuts the guy's arm down with the sleeve on, which I understand that's probably how they had to do that effect. But I just always thought it was kind of weird, like, that he would do that with the sleeve. I don't know. Just a little nitpicking, but not a bad scene. It's definitely bloody. It kind of shows Martin at, kind of at the bottom of the barrel, where at first he's like stalking these beautiful women. He's very careful about the way that he's doing his business. He's got the needles and the drug and the razor blades. He makes it look like a suicide. Very careful, very planned out. And at this point, he's getting sloppy, and he's just finding fucking hobos in a shed somewhere and drinking their blood. So, and of course that it goes into the next scene as well, which we'll talk about. So I don't really know where this would go. Oddly enjoyable, because it is a well done scene. It is pretty effective. Deserve better? I don't know. let's throw this one. Let's throw this one in deserved better for now, and maybe I'll change my mind. Because I do feel like the effect could have been better when he goes down the arm. I mean, the sleeve kind of makes it look a little hokey, and of course the blood coming out kind of it looks so thick and it looks just like red paint. So yeah, we'll go with deserved better on that one for now. And of course that leads into a scene where you know Martin, being sloppy now, is being chased by these two police officers, and Martin kind of goes into this shed or whatever, not shed, but warehouse or something, and he comes across a drug deal going on. And then, of course, that leads to a big shootout between the two cops and the drug dealers, and that leads to everybody in the fucking scene getting killed one way or another. One guy gets shot in the head, another guy gets run over by a car, one guy gets shot through the side here. Everybody dies in the end except for Martin. Martin somehow, escapes unscathed. Um, it's a very interesting scene. It's very like the editing on it. I think is very well done for especially for like just a low budget film like Martin was. A lot of shots, a lot of things. Good stunt. Probably the very first example of stunt work from Tom Savini that I can think of because Savini plays the body that gets run over by the car. And of course, that scene, the guys in that scene, Tony Booba, Pat Booba, Clayton McKinnon, and of course, Robert Barner and Stephen Vergelick. Which two names I'm not familiar with. I'm totally IMDb those guys. I'm not afraid to just say. But the Booba, everybody knows I love Tony Booba, and that's so everybody was kind of in that little scene there. I think it was. Did it fit? I mean, to me, that's the one thing about that scene that I've always been just kind of like, why? But I do think it just kind of shows this chaos. Like Martin is losing control. At the beginning of the film, Martin has complete control of his surroundings. He knows, making it look like a suicide, using the needle. I'm very careful. I'm always very careful. I mean, we see his control and the way that he's able to outsmart people, in the scene where he's stalking the two lovers in the big, the Rubenstein house or whatever. That's what I call it, the Rubenstein house. But where's that? Marbury, I think is where the house is at. But anyway, so at this point in the film, he's kind of losing control. He's fucking, killing hobos, and he's getting in the middle of this nonsense. So I do think it's frantic enough and it works well enough, and I do think there's something very oddly enjoyable about it. There's just so much going on, and then that brings us to Martin's demise. John Amplas as Martin at number 19, where Cuda, played by Lincoln Mizell, pretty much just has had enough of Martin at this point. He's going to drive the stake through Martin's heart and kill him, put him out of his misery forever. I do like, again, it's kind of like the scene in Night of the Living Dead where Ben gets shot. It's a jarring, sad ending, in a way. It's you don't really see it coming, because literally in the scene prior to it, you see Martin in a parade, and he's just kind of enjoying, curiously enjoying the world around him for like a split second before it cuts to him getting the stake in the heart. Now, to me, the effect, again, this was kind of a running theme here with Martin. I think in terms of the effects in Romero's films, and absolutely, definitely in Savini's career, Martin's probably the weakest of both. Outside of, the arm slit, the headshot in the shootout scene is pretty good, but a lot of the practical effects that Savini tried, and again, he did this with literally no budget. He was probably, picking things up at the dollar store to put these things together, but I feel like this effect could have worked if for some reason, I'm not sure why, but they lined it up to where Cuda's hammering the stake into Martin's stomach is what it looks like. Then it cuts to where, it's showing the stake in Martin's, like the center of his chest, like in his sternum. And then as he's hammering the stake down, it's just he kind of hammers it all the way down, and it doesn't come together the way it should. And I don't think it holds up very well. I do like the concept of the ending. I just don't think I didn't like the execution of the ending. So to me, this one's got to go in the deserved better pile as well. I think if Tom had a little bit more experience and a little bit more of a budget for the effects for Martin, I would love to have seen what he could have done, but unfortunately, he didn't have that luxury or opportunity. So yeah, so that's where we're at, and we get to our final film of the night, 1978's masterpiece, the greatest film ever made, Dawn of the Dead. We got quite a few to go through here, so. How far are we in? Okay, we're about an hour and a half in, so I'll try to go through these fairly quickly. So number 20 on the list is Rod Stouffer as Rod Tucker, which growing up I was always like, is it Rod Tucker or Roy Tucker? But anyway, so the film opens, of course, in the TV studio, and then it goes to the project scene, and you see Scott Reiniger's character, Roger. He's getting prepared, and we hear Woolie's tirade, and then right next to Roger is this young SWAT team member named Rod Tucker. And the beauty, I love this. This is one of my favorite things about Dawn of the Dead. I love the way that Romero introduces this character. Like, get to know him. You're going to care about him. He's going to be with us through the remainder of this film. Because in any other film ever in history, if a character is introduced first and last name, the way that this kid was, and just the kind of way that you're kind of like, oh, he's a good guy, he's young and he'll be okay, and yada yada yada. Dude literally introduces himself. Roger gives him a bit of advice. So you're like, oh, they're building some kind of rapport here. So this may be like, they may be partners in this or something. And then immediately, door opens, bam, this dude gets shot in the head, he's fucking dead. The balls to do that in a film, especially in 1978, to literally introduce this young, baby-face character, first and last name. Like, we already know his last name. We don't even know Roger's last name or any of the four main characters other than Stephen Andrews. Like, they don't mention it in the whole film, but we get his first and last name. So it's almost like I love the way that Romero kind of introduces this character and then quickly takes a left turn and says, no, he's already dead. And it just puts you like, it puts you in the mindset of like, holy shit, like I have no idea what to expect next. And then of course it goes on from there and you really don't know what to expect next in this film. I love this scene. I think, it's simple, but it's so effective. Is it iconic? No. Is it satisfying? Not really. I love it, but I'm thinking I'm going to put it in the oddly enjoyable pile because it is such a ballsy death scene that Romero, that very few, if any other filmmaker, this day and age, can you imagine 5 minutes into a film, you're introduced to this young babyface guy and you're just like, okay, like in your mind, you're thinking, okay, these are our two main characters here. And then it's like, nope, there he goes. He's gone. Yeah. So I got to put that one in oddly enjoyable. There is something very oddly enjoyable about that. All right. Which actually, I think I'm missing one here. But we'll get back to that. Anyway, number 21 on the list here. No character name, no actor name. This is just a head explosion. And I think this one's easy. I think this has got to be on here. Even though this is not a character in the film, it wasn't even a real person that played this quote-unquote character. It was literally a dummy. And then, of course, the cast head of Galen Ross, which they just filled with a bunch of fake blood and a bunch of shit and then blew it off with a shotgun. Iconic. To me, this is an iconic death scene in Romero's films. Like, if you put together a strip, and there's going to be a couple from Dawn of the Dead, spoiler alert, but there's going to be a couple. the head explosion. I mean, it literally, if the young kid getting killed at the beginning of the young SWAT team member getting killed at the beginning of the film, uh, doesn't put you on edge of being like, holy shit, what's coming up next? Then this definitely did, because you're literally like, door open, bam, head explosion, people screaming. Got to be iconic. Iconic. I mean, how many heads had you seen explode on film at that point? Can anybody think of any films prior to Dawn of the Dead where you saw an actual head explode? Of course, we saw it years afterwards with Scanners, and um, Savini did it again for Maniac, where he blew up his own head. But that's an interesting question. If anybody's got the answer out there, is how many how many films prior to Dawn of the Dead featured an exploding head? I don't know the answer to that. Um, Next up, Tommy Lafitte as Miguel the Zombie. Miguel, Fifi, Miguelito. Again, I think I'm gonna have to do it again. This one's got to be an iconic death scene as well. We don't really care about this lady who's getting bit, so it's not iconic in the fact that, like, oh, we cared about it. It's not iconic in the way that Ben's death is iconic. But again, in terms of memorable moments or memorable scenes, and again, I'll pose a very similar question to what the question I just posed um, with the exploding head. Was this the first time in film history where we saw an actual zombie bite? I think it is. I can't remember. I'm trying to think back, like Living Dead at Manchester Morgue. I know that there's some good gore in that, and that was 70. What was that, 72? Early 70s. So they may have done it first, but off the top of my head, I think this is the very first time in cinematic history that we see a zombie bite, and we see two of them, and still effective to this day. Still very well done. I think this has got to go in the iconic section as well. I think it's hard to argue against those two, just for what they've meant to horror cinema going forward. And make no bones about it. Without Dawn of the Dead, you do not have. I think Dawn of the Dead is more important to the slasher craze through the '80s as Halloween. Like, Halloween was kind of like, this is the setup. But I think what made slashers so big and so popular, especially in the early '80s at that time, was the gore effects. Was just the, how far can we push this envelope? How can we cut this person's head off? Can we, what can we do to somebody in these films and get away with it? And that started with Dawn of the Dead. So, and that's why Tom Savini went on to be the king of splatter throughout the '80s. So yeah. Let's see. We've got here. AF is in the chat. Hi there. Great idea for a stream. I agree. Martin was a good movie, but Savini was learning at this time. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And we all know what he would go on to be. But like I said, a budget that small with, with the time. And of course, he was acting on the side as well. So could have been better. Definitely deserved better. So, okay, that brings us to Jim Bothko as Wooly. And he finally gets his here in the end. Of course, he goes off in this wild shooting spree. Roger tries to stop him, but eventually it ends up taking the man himself, Peter, to step up and blast this guy, shoot him down, and end his crazed rampage once and for all. I think this one was a pretty... See, I got the two options on this one that I'm back and forth on: satisfying end and deserved better. It's satisfying because, this guy who is horrible, who is killing people left and right with no conscience, it seems like, finally gets his, and in a strange, satisfying turn of events, shot down and killed by a black guy who, of course, 2 minutes earlier, you're hearing this guy spewing all this racist and hateful, dialogue. So, it kind of comes around and kind of pays off in that way. So it is satisfying. But at the same time, I think this character deserved more. Like it'd have been maybe more enjoyable if the character was kind of got the Tasso treatment, which we'll talk about here in a minute, where if he just got, bitten, torn apart, something like that. But I do think it was satisfying nonetheless. Maybe could have been more, but I think it worked for where it was in the film at the time. So I think I'll put Woolie's death in a satisfying end, because, like I said, with the whole racial overtones and Peter stepping in and the black guy finally putting an end to this chaos, I think it works really, really well. Then we'll move on. We got 6 left, and I forgot one. It's not on here, but John Rice as the other young SWAT guy who shoot it, man, shoot it in the head. The guy that's got the shotguns out of bullets. And of course, he ends up shooting himself. Which I put up a poll on in the community section, talking about if in the event of a zombie apocalypse, how would you prefer to go? Which is, the constant, party question that I'm sure we've all had at some point, the party conversation we've all had at some point. Would you rather be torn apart, like Captain Rhodes in Day of the Dead? Would you rather get bitten once and just kind of wait it out? You never last more than 3 days, so you spend your last 3 days in pain and just kind of waiting to die, or do you just take the easy way out, like John Rice does in this film? And overwhelmingly, people voted that they would just take the easy way out. No, they were just like, I'm not even going to fight. I'm not even going to try. Fuck it. Taking the easy way out. So, yeah, I don't know where I would rank that one on here, but I thought it was interesting that I thought a lot of people would just say, fuck it, just tear me apart, get it over with, But I guess the other way is a quick way to get it over with too, I guess. But, I just thought that was funny. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know where I'd put that one. That one probably deserved better. But we'll get to the ones we got on here. So John Rice would be 24. So Scott Reiniger as Roger at number 25 on this list. And of course, like I said, I bounced back and forth on, did I want to count the moment that he was bitten as his death scene or his actual final moments? So I went with his final moments. And I think it's, we talked about it earlier. I think Robert Dobbins brought it up. Mentioned it earlier, just the scene, that final scene, the final moments there between him and Peter, and his whole monologue about, I'm going to try not to come back. He's still going to fight it even in the afterlife. Like, even when he dies, he's going to still fight and try, even though Peter knows that that's not the way it works. That's not going to happen. He's going to come back. But, it's a great scene. I do love that scene. And of course you got, the next scene when you got, the Millard Roush character on the TV, and they're arguing back and forth, and while all this is going on, you see, Roger rises up in the bed, and I mean, that is an iconic scene as well. So I mean, the whole thing is a very iconic scene. But to just try to limit it to this one scene here between Roger and Peter, because it is kind of his last moments, that is technically his death. Where would I rank this? Is it satisfying? I don't know if it's satisfying in, because it is very iconic, is in the picture as well, because it is a very iconic. The imagery in itself is very iconic. Mostly of him rising. So I mean, do you take that into account? See, this is one that I fucking bounce back and forth with in my head. Anybody in the chat, if you guys want to throw in an idea here on where this one should be placed, that would be appreciated. I guess I would count the whole scene even with him coming back. But then I guess I'd have to do that with all of them. Did I miss? Yeah, I didn't really take that into account with Helen or Harry. Yeah, I think I'll just take that final scene with him and Peter. And I think if I'm just counting that, I'm not counting his resurrection as well. I think I would put that oddly enjoyable because it is there is something oddly enjoyable about it because it is such a great performance from Scott Reiniger first and foremost. His execution of the dialogue and what he's saying and just the way his character. I mean, just even the makeup on him at the time. He looks skinnier and frailer. His hair is all just kind of wiry and out there at this point. He looks like a sick man on his deathbed. So I think it is effective in that aspect. So I think there is something very oddly enjoyable about this scene, even though it is a very sad scene. But we'll go with that for right now. All right, so bringing up number 26, we're looking at Tom Savini as Blades. And of course, this is the scene where Peter's in the ducks and, he shoots Blades, Savini's character Blades, shoots him. He flies off the balcony in the mall and falls into the fountain. You son of a bitch. And this one, I mean, you could put this in the iconic category because it was a very memorable stunt from Savini at the time. But I think satisfying end is probably where I'm going to end up putting this one because it is a very satisfying end. Peter getting his comeuppance against Blades, who's been trying to kill him for the past, 5-10 minutes in the film. And, he takes the dive over the balcony into the fountain. There is something very satisfying about that. I don't know if I'd put it oddly enjoyable. Now, deserve better, that would be an interesting category for this one to fall into because when you look at the what happens to the other guys around him, which we're going to talk about here in a second, it would have been interesting to see Savini torn apart. We've never seen Savini. Have we ever seen Savini? Yeah, I guess the head explosion scene in Maniac, but it's very rare to see Savini execute an effect on himself. So instead, we get this stunt. I think it's very well done. It's very satisfying. I think it's right there with Wooly, where it's like the bad guy gets his in the end. So I'm going to put that one in a satisfying end. What do you guys think? All right, 4 more to go. And then I think all the selections that end up in the iconic section, we're going to carry those on into a future stream. And then once I've narrowed all of these down, and I'm going to take only the ones that end up from all of Romero's films, only the iconic death scenes from all of Romero's films. Then we're going to really narrow it down and figure out which is the greatest of all time. So up next on the list, Larry Vera as the young biker, the guy that's always in the sidecar, who I think is one of the worst actors of all time. The guy, if you've ever watched the film, and he has a great look. My God, he could have been, surprisingly, he wasn't, but he could have been, I guess he couldn't act, so it didn't help, but he could have been something in Hollywood. I mean, he was just a great looking kid. But if you notice every time in the film, and I'm always like, dude, stop. He always looks at the camera. Always. Every scene he's in, there's a quick moment where he looks at the spot it. Next time you watch the film, anytime he is on the screen, and every time that we see him, he finds a way to look at the camera at least once, real quick. There's always, even when he's, just do it. Check it out. Watch it. But he finally gets his end as he's leaving the mall. Peter shoots him in the shoulder, knocks him off the bike, out in the middle of a huge crowd of zombies. Zombies, crush in on him and take him down, and then that's that. We don't really see what happens to him after that. Very cool scene. Nice little stunt there. Would have been nice, like I said, if he would have gotten the Tasso treatment, as Tasso gets here in just a second. But inventive, cool. But to me, I feel like could have been better. Deserved better on that one. At least a bite, or something. Instead of and there would always, people always bring up, and it's like, oh, and why is he shooting towards the screen? All the zombies are behind him, and it's just like, yeah, well, Um, so yeah, I think that one could have been better. Definitely deserved better on that one. And so that brings us to the good ones here. Up next, 3 to go. And number 20, where are we at? 28 on the list here is Tasso Stavrakis as Sledge. Of course, he gets shot off the bike, and then the zombies, crush in on him. Crush in. I don't know why I'm saying that. Crash in or crush in, whatever you want to call it. Descend upon him and tear him apart. And this is the first time in Dawn of the Dead or anywhere of the Romero zombie films, although we did see a little bit of this in Living Dead in Manchester Morgue years previous. So kudos to that film. That's a really, really enjoyable early zombie film as well. But we see, him getting torn apart and the guts and his reaction, people especially in the United States, people in mainstream theater goers had never seen anything like that prior to this. I know we see it all the time now. I mean, shit, we see it on TV commercials sometimes at this point. But yeah, I think and Sledge's reaction when he's getting torn apart, just the high pitched scream, the ah! Ah! I love that. It's like tough guy no more. He's just kind of screaming like a petulant child at this point. But I guess I would be too if I was getting disemboweled and torn apart at this by a bunch of zombies. So I think it's I wouldn't put it iconic, but I would say that it is definitely a satisfying end for the Sledge character, right up there with Savini and Wooly. Again, another villain character getting a strong comeuppance in the end. And then, of course, the other biker that everybody was talking about earlier, and we have come upon, is Tony Buba as the sombrero biker. Of course, like we were talking about, for no real reason other than the fact that probably Savini late one night was just like, "Hey George, what if we, put this guy's arm in the blood pressure cup and tear it off? Have a bunch of zombies tear it off." And George was probably like, "All right, yeah, if you can do it, that'd be cool." And then Tom figured it out, and they shot it, and they did it. But yeah, iconic, possibly. That's one that always gets a reaction. People that haven't seen it before, A, the reaction of why the hell do you do that? And B, is just like, oh, that's funny. Because it is clever. I mean, of course, when it comes back to the machine and it says blood pressure 0/0, like, that's, come on. Even, maybe you have to have a dark sense of humor like me to appreciate something like that. But I think it's hilarious. But anyway, where would I rank this one? The effect is pretty well done. I mean, I gotta say, satisfying, oddly enjoyable, deserve better. What do you guys think? Is it iconic? Could we put this in the iconic category? I don't think I could put it in the iconic category. Just looking at what's up there, I mean, the bin, and I'm kind of questioning. I think this one's got to go in oddly enjoyable because it wasn't really a satisfying end because we didn't really care about this character. He was just kind of, running around as part of the gang. Didn't really have any real beef with any of our main cast, or but I think that would make sense. Oddly enjoyable, but I think I would put this like right at the front of oddly enjoyable because it is very entertaining and enjoyable, I guess. Um, but see, this one's so weird because I could also there's also an argument to be made that it is a satisfying end. If you look at the other two that we put on with um, Savini and Tasso, I'm gonna stick with oddly enjoyable, unless somebody wants to get on here and talk me out of it. Um, and then that leaves us with our final Romero death scene, number 30 on the list. David Emge as Flyboy, and again, like with the Roger death, I'm gonna just kind of take into account the scene of him getting bit and attacked by the zombies and fighting the zombies out of the elevator, and the elevator closes, and then that final shot of him just sitting there. He spits out the blood, and he's been bitten all over, shot in the arm. I mean, he looks like a complete mess. Um, I love it. I think the bites in this scene look fantastic. I think Imge's performance as he's getting bit and fighting off these zombies and just the clunkiness of it too. The way that he's fighting them off. It's not like he's like super kicking these zombies out of the fucking elevator or like punching them or anything. He's just kind of grabbing what he can and he's just like pulling and tugging, just trying to, you know, get a grip on his gun long enough to shoot one. Just really well done scene. I've always really liked that scene a lot. Like I said, very bloody. The effects are good. I think it's very, very effective, and I think that this is. I don't think it's iconic. I don't think we can put this one in the iconic category. Now, if we're taking into account, his just like with Roger, the reveal when the elevator opens of him, stumbling out and his zombie walk, and I mean that absolutely would fall under the iconic category. That's just an iconic scene in horror, period. But his actual death, I think, I'm going to put it in the satisfying end category because it is a very there's a lot going on in it. It is a very very satisfying way to go out for old Flyboy. So that's it. Looking at any changes that anybody think that that should be made here. Should we move anything? Should we just looking at, okay, so deserved better. We got Barbara's death. We've got Artie's death from the Crazies. Lane Carroll's death from the Crazies. A lot from Martin, the Al Levitsky. Lewis is the Lewis character. The Hobos. I kind of feel bad putting all these because I love Martin. Like I said, I love Martin. Martin's probably my second favorite film of all time, to be honest with you. But I mean, we do have the opening death scene on the girl on the train from Martin is up there, and I think that is the most iconic death scene. Now, if we were to count, if we were to count the suicide scene with what's the damn actress's name? I can't think of her name right now, but it's getting late. I'm telling you, I'm burning out. Here we go. Mrs. Bellini, something like that. God, why am I blanking? I'm blanking on this poor woman's name. Anyway, the suicide where she's in the tub and Martin discovers her. I think that's probably the most iconic death shot. But the fact that we don't see it and we just kind of see the aftermath, I didn't know if I wanted to include, but I would put that in the iconic category. Probably even more so than the train one. So I don't know. I think the head explosion scene and the bites are definitely iconic from Dawn of the Dead. And the Tony Bubba death scene from Dawn of the Dead. So I'm bouncing back and forth. It's oddly enjoyable. I wouldn't say it's a satisfying end, but I do think there's an argument to be made that it could be, you know, lower end iconic. Maybe I'm not sure. Anybody in the chat got thoughts on this sucker? We got 1911 Guitar Dude. Tony's scene is a satisfying end to me. Okay. It also says honorable mention for oddly enjoyable for the Tommy gun biker that Peter shoots at the end. Okay. Interesting. So you'd move these up. So you would put Booba here, Larry Vera there. I could see oddly enjoyable for this one just because the shot is awesome of the biker surrounded by the zombies and he's got the Tommy gun and he's shooting all around, but they just kind of overwhelm him. I could definitely see that. I do, man. You're kind of swaying. I kind of want to even just move this up to iconic. Does that look right? Does that feel right? Definitely low end on the iconic scale, but it is one of the most memorable death scenes in Dawn of the Dead and Romero's films. Period. So, how do I feel about this one? How do I feel about this? I think I'm okay with it. I think this is where we're going to stick, and I think I'm gonna call it there. I think this is the list right here. So yeah, if you're watching this after the fact, drop your opinions and thoughts and where you would think some of these are ranked, because this was difficult for me. I'm not even lying. Like, this is difficult to pick apart and discern one from the other where things needed to be. But I just looking at it looks right. The only one I'm just yeah. I think I'm okay with it. I think I'm good with it. Yeah, I'm good with it. 1911 Guitar Dude. List looks good to me. All right. Well, I'm all right. I'm calling it there. That's the list. That's the rankings of the official Alpha Romero rankings of the Romero death scenes from 1968 to 1979, baby. So yeah, we'll come back. We'll do part 2, 1980 through 89. So everything from Night Riders all the way up through Monkey Shines. Yeah, I don't think there's anything after Monkey Shines until 1990. So, but we'll have plenty to figure out between just Creepshow and Day of the Dead alone. So that should be fun. But so yeah, that's it for part 1. Let me I'll hop on here and get full screen for y'all so I can see my big fat fucking head. But yeah, that was fun. I appreciate all you guys watching, checking it out. Always love interaction in the chat over here. I do enjoy doing these little tier lists are fun because it is just kind of a mental exercise for nerds like me, and yeah, I like doing it. So we'll do part 2. I don't know if that'll be the next stream that I do. I'm not sure what I want to do next weekend. I got a couple of ideas, some Christmassy ideas. We'll call them Christmas ideas. I want to do something for the holiday season, and I figure what better thing to do than to watch or discuss or do something with John Russo's classic horror Christmas film, Santa Claus. I don't know what the fuck I'd be doing with that. Maybe a drunk watch along or something. That'd be something new. I haven't done that. The very first watch along I ever did on this channel was basically a drunk watch along because I watched There's Always Vanilla, and just drank an entire bottle of wine throughout that film. And by the end of it, I was just slurring my words and making absolutely no fucking sense. So, I might do that with Santa Claus. Maybe get a little eggnog or something. That'd be pretty fun. But that's it for me tonight. I'll be back next weekend with something new. I got some other videos and stuff in the pipeline. Still doing the Tales from the Dark Side Tuesdays with Entering the Dark Side, going through watching every episode of every season from Tales from the Dark Side for the first time. I've really enjoyed it so far, and we're just getting started, just digging in. So that's going to be kind of an ongoing thing. Just to do it, just to have a record of my thoughts and feelings on this show as we go. But yeah, as always, I appreciate all you guys. I hope you guys have a great rest of the weekend. Have a great week next week, and I'll see you guys next weekend. But until then, as always, as the great man himself once said, stay scared. Good night, everybody.